Hello there, my lovelies. How are we doing? Welcome back to my channel, Beamy Reactions. For those of you who are new, my name's Beamy, and thank you for watching. Now today, guys, I was scrolling some of Swegle Studios videos, and this one caught my eye. So this is Satan's Storm. Oh my gosh, it sounds very ominous, very, very scary. I have never heard of this, so I'm not entirely sure what it is, but if like the title of the video here. So we're talking about Texas. This is the night that Texas hit 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which for British brains over here, that is 60 degrees Celsius. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It's too hot. That is holiday ruining temperatures. You know, we all go away in the summertime, and wherever you are, you want the temperatures to be over at least 30, don't you? And then otherwise it's not a holiday. It's not a holiday if you don't come back sunburned. Oh, what a good tan. So I remember once going on holiday to Spain, and during siesta, the temperature got uncomfortably close to 50. I think it got over 45. Might have got to like 47. But yes, it was during siesta, so everything comes to a standstill. Anyway, but that was almost holiday ruining, not for the entire holiday, but I mean it in the sense that you can't do anything in that heat. That's too hot. You can't go out. You can't explore the town. You can't, oh dear Lord. No, you can't go in the pool. You can't go in the sea. You can't go anywhere. You have to stay in the shade. That is far too hot. So to hear that Texas got to 60 degrees Celsius. No. Did he actually? Well, I believe Swegle Studios. So it must have got that hot. That is absolutely ridiculous. So this was during a storm. So what was it about this storm that was so freak? What drove those temperatures up? What happened? Because we're not talking about like a tornado or anything here, are we, guys? I'm asking questions that are definitely going to get answered. Zip it, booby. Let's watch the video and I'm sure we'll find out. So this is another one from Swegle Studios, as I said. So Jake is going to be telling us all about Satan's Storm. Oh my gosh. And guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much, my lovelies. If you're interested, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. That link is over here. And if you would like to help support my channel any further, I have a Patreon account. And if you want to check that out at all, that link is in the description, just below there.
The date, June 15th, 1960.
Oh, 1960. I don't know why I make assumptions before we go into videos. And I don't know why I assumed that this was going to be a lot more recently. I suppose we associate freak weather more with climate change, which we tend to associate as getting worse and worse over the years. So I assumed it was more recent than that. My mistake. 1960.
Location, the very small town of Kopperl, Texas. It was a typical beautiful summer evening. Skies were clear and the temperature was a comfortable 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
21. Thank you, Swegle, for the temperature translation. So 21 degrees Celsius. That, I mean, here in the UK, that's a warm day. It's a comfortably warm day. That's summer temperatures. We're happy to have temperatures like this, especially if the sun's out. Not so much if it's just raining, but that's very comfortable, but still a very pleasant temperature.
But a line of strong thunderstorms was forecasted to roll in through the middle of the night.
Okay.
This was not something that was unusual. Central Texas and much of the plains in general encounter nocturnal thunderstorms all the time during the summer. So nobody in town gave the upcoming thunderstorm much thought. Parents put down their children for the night and went to bed.
As you do, yeah. Thunderstorms quite frequently happen overnight. You don't really think anything of them. A bit of lightning, a bit of thunder, might be a bit of noise, but nothing more than that really, not often. I just want to highlight how unbelievably relaxing Jake's voice is. I could actually fall asleep listening to this. Very soothing.
But as the storm passed over around midnight, everyone in town suddenly woke up. Was it a large bolt of lightning? No. Was it the sirens going off, warning of an approaching tornado?
Oh, there was a tornado.
It was
No?
actually a massive and sudden spike in temperature. According to those who witnessed the event, within a matter of minutes, the temperature outside became extremely hot.
What?
Thermometers on buildings climbed all the way up until they maxed out at 140 degrees Fahrenheit.
So, literally, 3 times the temperature almost that it had been minutes earlier? I have never heard of anything so bizarre. What was it about this storm?
Or 60 degrees Celsius. During the
Okay.
thunderstorm, something strange caused the temperature to rise by nearly 50 degrees within only a few minutes.
Crazy.
On top of the temperature spike, it was also extremely windy, and people panicked. Parents covered their children with wet towels, some rushed to underground cellars with cooler temperatures, and some even thought it was the end of the world.
It doesn't sound like, I mean, yes, the temperature, the amount that the temperature increased by is crazy, but I think sometimes it's hard to imagine the reality of, you know, like physiologically and biologically what that does to your body when you experience such massive extremes in temperature. Like when we have a heat wave over here in the UK, and it literally will go from 15 degrees to like 35 and then drop back down to 15 like the following week. So a little bit crazy. And I'm convinced that these huge changes in temperature lead to like an awful lot more viruses going around, like really upset stomach aches. Because you think about it, it can be a symptom of heat exhaustion, can't it? So there must be something that happens physiologically speaking, and it's not good. So, but for this to happen this night, the temperature increased by 50 degrees so suddenly. I can't even imagine what that feels like.
And this heat didn't just last for a few minutes. No, it stayed near 140 degrees for 4 sweltering hours. It wouldn't be until 4 a.m. that the heat and the winds finally died down. The town.
But we'd normally associate winds with breaking those high temperatures, wouldn't we? Maybe that's just me. But I would have thought that, yeah, the exact opposite would happen. The winds come in and then it cools everything down. But no, not here, not this storm.
Folk were so affected by this heat thunderstorm, they called the event Satan's Storm.
I'm not surprised. Must have felt like
The next
an
morning,
inferno,
the residents
like
of
hell.
Kopperl were eager to find out what happened, so they tuned in to the local news. What caused this freak heat storm? But to their surprise, nothing was mentioned about it on the news. Interestingly, this heat burst thunderstorm thing only seemed to happen over the town of Kopperl. No other towns or cities in Texas reported a similar temperature spike. This further added to the mystery. Now, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius is a crazy
It's nuts.
outside temperature.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, the highest official temperature ever recorded on this planet, like anywhere
Isn't
ever,
that much
is
hotter?
134 degrees Fahrenheit, recorded in Death Valley, California on July 10th in 1913.
Well, how can that statistic be right then? Because if the temperatures have exceeded that here, why is Texas? Why is this place not known as having the hottest temperature ever recorded? Why?
So if this supposed heat wave thunderstorm actually happened, like the townsfolk claim, it would be the highest temperature ever recorded.
Right,
So the question
right.
is, did this event actually happen? Well, surprisingly, the evidence suggests yes. To answer the question on whether this freak heat wave Satan storm actually occurred, we need to find some primary sources. And
I'm sure to the residents that experienced this, the fact that people are actually questioning if it happened or not must, like, that's the height of gaslighting. Of course it happened. They experienced it. You know, they've recorded the temperatures. They've seen it on the Oh, the thermometer, surely.
Eyewitness testimonies from the people who were actually there during the event. And honestly, one rather annoying aspect about this whole Satan's Storm weather event is that there really isn't much info about it online or anywhere. It, in many ways, just seems like a piece of Texas folklore. But we do have reports about the event taken around that time. There was one journalist who traveled to the town after the event, WBAP TV's photojournalist Floyd Bright. Bright filmed the extreme wind damage and interviewed several eyewitnesses. I searched forever for this footage. YouTube, the Internet Archive. A lot of other people were looking for this footage too, so I thought for sure it was lost media. But I somehow was actually able to find this footage online. It was in the North Texas University archives.
Oh, he did it. Jake, your investigative journalism is outstanding.
How crazy
Well
is
done.
that? Anyway, I received the footage and here's what he captured. Now he starts off by filming various examples of strong wind damage. And the wind damage definitely was significant.
What speeds do the winds reach, do they think? What? I mean, that's pretty significant. It's uprooted trees. Oh. Oh, her rabbit's okay.
Clearly, the winds were quite strong.
That's nuts.
I mean, look at this small convenience store. It looks like it was hit by an EF1 or EF2 tornado.
Yeah.
Wind damage is cool and all, but we're here to talk about the heat. So let's get to the actual interviews.
Well, about 12 o'clock last night, the lights and the air conditioners went off. So we went outside to where we thought it'd be cooler, but instead of being cooler, the temperature is about 100 degrees, and just like a hot blast of air out of the oven hit you in the face when you went out there. It's so hot, you couldn't stay out there. And I called the electric power company and was telling them about how strong the wind was and the power was out. And JD, what?
Well, our crew that started down here, they reported back to me on the radio that it was so hot in the truck and they thought that the heater was on. So they checked the heater to make sure the heater wasn't on. How hot was it?
Well, it was over 100 degrees.
Was it hard to breathe?
Well, you couldn't hardly breathe. It's just like you stick your head in the oven. George and I went to the dock several times, about 3 times, and his car got hot. The water was boiling in his radiator.
Many people had an extremely difficult time breathing, and wet towels were used to cool the air around their mouths to relieve some of their breathing difficulties, especially with young children and older adults.
So it's difficult to breathe the very air that's surrounding you at this point. I'm struggling to actually imagine what that's like.
Well, there was one moment that a little kid couldn't hardly breathe, and they had to put wet handkerchiefs on their nose so they could breathe because the air was so hot that
the nose out.
it nearly suffocates you if you didn't have a wet towel or something that could moisten air.
One of the best ways to escape the heat during the event was to seek shelter in a storm
Underground.
cellar, since temperatures were cooler underground. One local farmer actually opened up his storm cellar to almost 20 people.
What were you?
It sounds really lovely. That's an amazing idea. But the more bodies that you're piling in to a small area, the warmer it's going to get. Oh gosh, it sounds like a nightmare.
Your experiences during the storm?
Well, the wind kept blowing and couldn't sleep. And my ears were popping, so I just thought I'd get up and go down to the storm house. Had a half bed down there and go down there and stay a while. Down there about an hour, and a lot of company came in. About 19, I believe, in all told.
20 people in there.
I was still in bed in the house when they came, so I got up and joined the crowd.
That's charming that he didn't get his wife to go in with him. I suppose if she's asleep, if she can sleep.
Well, we raised the wind in our house, and the wind was so hot, I thought the house was on fire. So we came over to Hokey's cellar, and I was the second one in there, and there he was in his shorts.
Another
very
eyewitness
good
of the
spirits
event
about
told their
it.
story on Reddit. I lived on a farm outside of Kopperl when this happened. I was 9 years old, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night when our old window water cooler went off. It was eerily silent, and then the house was hit by a strong and hot wind. My father decided we needed to go to the storm cellar outside the back door, and we stayed in there for quite a while. Later, we saw the large advertising thermometer at Riddle's bait shop in Kopperl had burst from the heat. On the news, we saw photos of someone's cotton field, and all the plants were scorched. Very, very strange. Now, real quick, let's talk about that thermometer. In fact,
So I was just about to say, well, how hot does this need to be in order to burst a thermometer? I think it's quite hot. Also, as well, like, I'm under the impression that Texas is hot. So if you have Texans here saying it was so hot, you know it's very, very uncomfortably hot.
let's talk about the 140-degree temperature, because nowhere in any of the interviews did someone mention 140 degrees. In fact, the only mention of an actual thermometer
Over
was right
100.
here.
I got up about midnight, and it was so hot. I came out here to see just how hot it was. This thermometer was sitting on 100 degrees, and I think it got hotter than that afterwards.
I guess that could imply 140 degrees, but I'm not so sure. One primary source that did mention the 140-degree temperature was an article in the Clifton Record. The article was titled, "Freak Heat Wave Hits Lake Whitney." By the way, Lake Whitney is the lake that Kopperl is located on.
Okay,
Tuesday
so-
night, residents in the vicinity of a lakeside village in Mooney Village experienced a freak weather condition that caused considerable damage and aroused fear among the residents. Intense night heat that generated destructive windstorms unroofed a number of buildings, toppling power poles and trees. The temperature climbed to 96 degrees. The weatherman reported that the temperature must have reached nearly 140 degrees for a brief time in spots. Pressure dropped swiftly, and glass in the Mooney store shattered outward. A number of residents sought safety in a storm cellar.
So the weatherman said that. So a meteorologist, I get, yeah, is that fair to call him that? As even said, it must have got up to 140. It's just crazy.
So that's all the evidence we really have for 140 degrees, but we do have some other evidence. Another more tangible piece of evidence might be the burned crops. A local farmer named Pete Burns, yes, literally his last name is Burns. Anyway, Mr. Burns reported that his cotton stalks had darkened and changed color, and that you could crush them with your hands almost like as if it had been frozen in liquid nitrogen.
So we could do an
I
experiment
plowed
to see
this
this.
cotton yesterday, and it was right pretty stand of it. Today you can see it looks like a blowtorch has been run over it. And the same way with the corn right across the road here. The leaves had all burnt off of it. We also cut some hay. Normally it'd take about 2 days for it to cure, and it was cured overnight. We had such a hot wind. Baling it now.
This journalist did a great job because he actually tried to record the sound of the crop breaking apart as if it was burnt. I think that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. That's toasted.
Even earlier in the video, he filmed like a cinematic scene of a car pulling up to some damage, and then he switched to the two men walking out of the car. That's some pretty cool stuff. I love that. Since this occurred before the modern meteorological era, we really don't have any true data that it actually got that hot. We have no data from the event. All we have are just little pieces of evidence like burnt cotton and eyewitness testimonies. I mean, clearly it got super hot out with the breathing difficulties and people trying to escape their houses because they thought they were on fire. This kind of environment does sound like it could really only happen in an extreme heat, like around the 130 degrees Fahrenheit range. Unfortunately, though, like I said, no proper measurements were taken at the time, so no one truly knows how hot it actually got. If only this event had happened today. Well, actually, a very similar event did happen much more recently.
Really?
On August 23rd, 2011, the townspeople of Atlantic, Iowa were going about their day when suddenly the temps went up. A lot. But this time, it didn't happen in the middle of the night. No, it happened in the late afternoon, early evening, around 5:55 p.m. Everything was chill, everything was calm, the temp was 84 degrees. It's a little hot, but nothing unusual. The dew point was 75 degrees and the winds were near 5 miles per hour. But within 5 minutes, the winds picked up to 20 miles per hour and the temp went up to 86 degrees. Okay, that's not too bad, only 2 degrees. But then, 10 minutes later, around 6:15, the wind was blowing at a brisk 60 miles per hour, and the temp continued to go up to 93 degrees. The dew point had also dropped to 54 degrees. So the temp went up about 7 degrees in only 15 minutes. But it wasn't over yet. Over the next hour until 7:05 p.m., the temperature would rise even more, up to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and the dew point plummeted to 7 degrees. At this peak heat, the winds surprisingly died down to only 3 miles per hour. Within an hour, the temp went up nearly 20 degrees, and the Iowans noticed.
Weird weather gets Iowans talking, and today our Eric Hansen found out that in towns all across southwest Iowa, people were asking, did you feel what moved through town just before sunset?
I noticed the temperature change.
I felt you'd have to notice 20 degrees.
This heat rising up through the window. And I said to my husband, you need to come here.
It just felt like when you open your oven after it's been
the blast of hot
preheated.
It was just like that. It was just a gust of hot air, just exactly like the blow dryer.
As if you had just turned on a heater and it was coming at your face.
With winds up to 60 miles an hour and plummeting humidity. But even crazier was how fast it left.
It was just a matter of minutes.
It just calmed down.
It was weird.
Mother Nature's not happy with us.
Everyone here in town knows exactly what it felt like, but no one really knows why it happened.
Of course, the great thing about this event is that, unlike the Texas event in 1960, this time we have the data. Here's a graph showing the dew point and temperature over the time frame of the event provided by the Atlantic AWOS. There were also multiple other weather stations at schools that recorded the anomaly. The temperature and dew point data collected from these various schools clearly show the temperature slowly rising and then a sudden spike around 7:15.
So in Texas, there was a storm. But what is the explanation for it happening here? I think I would panic. I think I'm an anxious person. I am a panicker. I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, it's a solar storm. It's finally happened. We're going to die. That's what my brain would instantly go to.
It also showed the sudden wind speed increase. Clearly, the same phenomenon that happened in Kopperl, Texas in 1960 appears to have happened again. A lot of the language is the same as well, like the air felt like the heat when you open an oven.
It's just like a hot blast of air out of the oven hit you in the face when you went out there.
It just felt like when you open your oven after it's been preheated.
And clearly this sudden change in temperature was pretty impactful.
It was a big change, something that was extremely noticeable, not just minor.
This was like, I thought the house was on fire. I looked out the window to see if there was something going on because it was so sudden and so obvious.
So what is going on? What is up with these micro heat waves? Well, meteorologists have actually figured out exactly what's going on.
Ooh.
These two events were caused by a very rare meteorological phenomenon known as the heat burst. So what?
Not a heat wave, this is a heat burst. But with how hot the temperatures that we saw from Kopperl in Texas, that's serious. That's a really serious problem to, not just, actually the temperature in itself, 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, that temperature on its own is a problem. But not more, but also the fact that the temperature's increased by like 50 degrees.
Is a heat burst. Well, a heat burst is a sudden yet brief wave of very hot wind. These occur when hot air lofted high up in the atmosphere, usually around 10 to 20,000 feet up, is suddenly blown down to the ground in a very similar mechanism to another much more common phenomenon that you probably have heard of, the downburst. Okay, so with any thunderstorm, you have pockets of moisture, rain, hail, up in the atmosphere, and this moisture then cools the surrounding air. Cool air is denser than warm air, so it falls rapidly and then can get flushed out onto the ground, for lack of a better term. Okay, but I just said cool air there. How does it occur with hot air? Well, in an extremely rare circumstance, the cool moist air that originated high up into the, cumulonimbus cloud, as it falls, the rain and moisture evaporates, and as it evaporates, it becomes extremely dry, and then that air compresses, and that compression actually causes it to get super hot. And then all that hot air just onto the ground.
Okay.
And then boom, you get a heat wave down on the surface. They usually occur when the parent thunderstorm is decaying, and they usually occur during the night. Let's go back to the Atlantic, Iowa example and look at the data to see how this particular heat burst formed. Here is a sounding chart, a vertical view of the atmosphere near Omaha around 7 p.m. as the heat burst was occurring over Iowa. This line represents the temperature, and do you see how it suddenly gets hotter as it descends through the atmosphere? It's heating up through compression. Here's a velocity scan of the high wind reported during the heat burst near Guthrie. Now this entire area likely got super hot, but it's believed that this specific high velocity area had the highest temperatures.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one was actually in this area at the time to record the true top temp. So what are some other verified, keyword verified, we'll talk about unverified later, heat bursts throughout history? Well, the very first mention of the heat burst phenomenon may have been in Georgia in 1860. A Scientific America article, volume 3, 106, stated, a hot wind extending about 100 yards in width lately passed through middle Georgia and scorched up cotton crops on a number of plantations. A hot wind also passed through a section of Kansas. It burned up the vegetation in its track, and several persons fell victim to the poisonous blast.
Poisonous blast? Why would they describe it as poison?
It lasted for a very short period, during which the thermometer stood at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Sounds a lot like a heat burst.
Yeah.
In terms of the record in swing in temperature, like the greatest temperature climb of a verified heat burst, that occurred during a heat burst in 2008 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Around 4 a.m. on August 3rd, 2008 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, during a thunderstorm, the wind suddenly picked up and the temperature went from 70 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 101 degrees Fahrenheit in only 15 minutes. It went up a massive 31 degrees. Around 3:45 in the morning, campers at Wall Lake contacted police to report strong winds and unusually high temperatures. There was also a significant pressure drop during the incident. And this is interesting because a major pressure drop was also recorded during the Kopperl, Texas heat burst in 1960. In fact, one farmer during the event stated that his ears were popping.
Yes, he did. He said his ears were popping. And I didn't know whether to take that literally, like, your ears are popping, pressure related popping, or whether he was just saying, his ears, it felt like there was a lot of noise going on because of the winds, or, I wasn't sure to take it in which sense.
My ears were popping, so I just thought I'd get up and go down Storm House.
It was also noted that the windows of a local store broke outward due to the low pressure. That's probably the wind. I don't know. But as you can see, a similar pressure drop was recorded in Sioux Falls in 2008. And then the pressure quickly returned to its previous level as the storm dissipated. The highest verified temperature ever recorded during a heat burst was in Phoenix, Arizona on July 28, 1995, where the temp climbed from 106 degrees Fahrenheit to only 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So not quite 140. Also, this is kind of crazy, but one heat burst actually just occurred like last week. Like as I was recording this video and doing research, like one happened. There was a significant heat burst in Viewbank, Australia in the middle of the night on January 9th, 2026.
Of course, the heat bursts are going to happen on other continents apart from the USA. Can't believe I didn't think of that. So Australia.
The temperature went from 18 degrees Celsius at 2 a.m. to 36 degrees Celsius at 4 a.m. and then all the way back down to 18 degrees Celsius by 5:30 a.m.
Right? Nuts.
That's actually crazy. But if you want to talk crazy, then we should discuss unverified heat bursts, because these really are crazy. For example, apparently in Portugal on July 6, 1949, the temperature went from 38 degrees Celsius all the way up to 70 degrees Celsius in, are you ready? 2 minutes.
No. That's gross. Can you imagine if you were there? Could that be an over-exaggeration? Like I say, I know when I was in Spain many years ago, for it to get over 45, for it to start creeping towards 50 was a bit, it was something that locals were a bit like, oh, it's hot, freakishly hot. So the neighbours, Portugal and Spain. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I can't believe it.
That's crazy.
I can't
What?
believe it.
That's some extreme weather right there. This was apparently possible because this heat burst just happened to occur during a significant heat wave. One newspaper article at the time stated that the blast of hot air to the people encountering it felt like being licked by fiery tongues. Does not sound pleasant at all. In terms of unverified heat bursts, the max temp ever recorded was an outstanding 188 degrees Fahrenheit or 87 degrees Celsius
Like in the Sahara
shade
Desert?
temperature in June 1967 in Abadan, Iran. That's wow. Apparently and unfortunately, this event killed 12 men. So yeah, mystery solved. Now we know the mechanisms behind these so-called Satan storms. Did it really get up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit in Texas in 1960? Well, anything 140 plus kind of seems a little crazy to me, to be honest. They might have been exaggerating a little bit, but I mean, clearly something happened. I personally believe it was probably around 130 degrees. I mean, the heat was clearly substantial enough for the locals to make a big deal out of it. And it also lasted for so long, 4 hours. That's not very typical of a normal heat burst. So there is still a little bit of a mystery with that event. But overall, we have a good idea of what happened. The heat burst phenomenon is likely one we will encounter more in the future, and perhaps one extreme example soon will be fully documented and will finally break that 100-year-old 136-degree heat record in Death Valley. Quick announcement, there's a new members-only video on megacryrometeors. These are large chunks of ice that mysteriously randomly fall under blue skies. What is going on there? Well, be sure to check out that video if you're a member. But yes, thank you so much for watching.
I'm not a member, but I want to know. What do you think, guys? Is it likely there's ever so much of an exaggeration? I'm inclined to agree with Jake here. I think the temperatures sound like they got up to 130 minimum. If we were talking about 140, would that not come into like the danger of forest fires? Would that not be a very real danger once you start creeping up above 130? So the fact that the cotton plants were scorched but not set ablaze, if the air's that dry, and I know it's a smaller area. What do you think? It is a shame that it's not verified, so you can't really say for definite, but I'd say it sounds like 130 Fahrenheit minimum. I don't dispute it got that hot at all. I cannot even comprehend how hot that is. I start feeling uncomfortable around just over 30. Just under double that. I think I'd panic. I would think it was a solar storm or something, the celestial heavens. I don't know. I have no idea. I would panic. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching along with me. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.